This is Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life on a beautiful hump of the week, Wednesday morning. Time to dive into the papers. Take a look at the headlines that have been making the rounds and have got you, Nigeria, got you talking. This is Freshly Pressed. It is, as always, an interactive session. So we're always looking to you to come through and share your thoughts, your opinions, and of course, your feelings, reactions on the stories that we will be sharing. WhatsApp is right there for you. As always, it's 0809 440 981 0809 440 981. That is the WhatsApp number. YouTube is also a platform where you can stream us live and, of course, drop your comments as well. It's YouTube, it's Smooth 981 FM Lagos on YouTube, Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And I will not be writing alone because I've got not one gentleman with me in the studio in persons of Devoe and Lakunle as well. Good morning to you, Devoe. Good morning to you, Lakunle. Great to have you on once again.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, all listeners everywhere where you are listening to us this morning. And Ayo, thank you for your words of encouragement. I've recovered from my malaria that I developed at the first station on Saturday.
This is the first time I've heard someone getting malaria from seeing the pump price just go up and up while fueling their car. Glad to have you back with us, Mr. Devoe. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, morning Lagos, morning world. Cool, Dangote fuel.
I think if nothing, if I don't look forward to anything on Wednesdays, it is Devoe's very interesting Yoruba greetings to us. They always hit home very hard. Thank you for that one, Devoe, and welcome once again. Let's begin our ride into the papers this morning by taking the story coming out of the Punch. Devoe, I'm coming to you with this one. And it says the Central Bank of Nigeria has confirmed that it will sustain its ways and means advances to the federal government at a 5% limit for the fiscal years 2024 to 2025. Now, the latest development is contrary to a bill passed by the National Assembly, which raised the maximum borrowing percentage in the act from 5% to 10%. It will make sense of this for us, will you please?
Yes, I really wish we had time because there's a lot in this story that hasn't been written. For those who don't know, Ways and Means is a framework by the central bank to create a little bit more credit or fund for operations of the federal government anytime they are in what I call it, in a broke position. So by take about before they used to be entitled to take about 5% of the budgets. Okay, so for example, our budget is at 27 trillion. Let's just make that 30 trillion. Yeah. So 10% would be 3 trillion. Yeah. 5% would be 1.5 trillion. Now, we saw the complete as with government whenever it fails the citizens in terms of abuse of policy in the Buhari
Devoe,
administration.
your
The
connection isn't very clear.
CBN, which
It's a
was
bit
then
laggy on your
led
end.
by Mayfield, abused the Ways and Means Act and took money to the tune of and then the budget was even less. They spent up to now we know they spent up to about. Can you hear me?
Okay, I think it's a bit better now. It was laggy and draggy for a bit.
Okay.
Maybe you change your
Okay.
position where you are.
Let me just backtrack. Okay, so like I said, during the Buhari administration, the CBN governor
Right.
then, initially, they abused the Ways and Means Act, and now we know that they spent to the tune of about 22 trillion naira. And the only time we knew of this was because the then Edo State governor, Obaseki, was shouting and crying that the federal government was printing money. Now, what that did was it created a lot of expense that's entered the debt situation of this country because at the end of the day, someone has to pay for it. So with the passing of the last administration and the Senate, the Ahmed Lawan Senate, they securitized that 33 trillion, okay, because of the interest rates that was added to it across about, I think, 40 years, which comes to about an extra 4 trillion naira every year on our budgets. Now, another day we'll talk about the debt situation. But the truth is, the question was, what would we do to ensure that executives would no longer have this capacity to spend the money? So the National Assembly passed the raising of that Ways and Means limits from 5% to about 10%. But the CBN now is coming to say, no, even though you've raised it to 10, we will not give you beyond 5%. That's good internal governance by the CBN. But you know that corruption, like we always say, corruption is the only thing that makes nonsense of any policy or move by government. What's erstwhile would be well thought out policies. If the executive push on the CBN through political means that we need more money, what would happen? Okay, what would really happen? How many times can civil servants say no to when their political executives make demands? So the question for me, it's not so much of that, the fact that CBN is trying to curb the debt situation, which they should be doing. The point is, we are going to have to find a way to kill corruption in this country, because even the committee that was put on investigating what happened to the 36 trillion till date, the committee has gone into audio, it has gone into voicemail. It's the same way, and
they're still working.
It's not working. And the funny thing is that the CBN is not the only means of getting funds in this country. You can see what is going on between Dangote and NNPCL, back and forth, the Malta boys, blending of crude and petroleum products, spending of money that till date we don't know who is spending it and who is consuming all that fuel. This is the country we live in. And the last point I would want to say is this. There's no half measure for corruption. If you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill you. There's no half measure. If you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill you. At least at some point, we need to come out with names and faces of people who have compromised governments, even in the private sector. And the adequate laws to deal with them need to be meted out. But as long as we make it a wishy-washy, as long as I have one friend in government or the other in the judiciary, as you hear, go to court. Why are we going to court? Because maybe the court seems to have been compromised. We will continue lounging in the full abuse of the country's commonwealth.
All right, thank you for that, Devoe. Corruption must be killed. No half measures, no middle ground whatsoever. All right, Lakunle, let's jump into The Guardian and talk about Borno State once again. I mean, that is a major story, and there are developments every other day. Now, Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum yesterday lamented the influx of unaffected persons into camps for the displaced, saying the situation was hampering relief operations. Now, the governor raised the alarm while flagging off the distribution of relief materials to victims in 36 internally displaced persons camps. Now, first of all, on one hand, Lakunle, I mean, those who are not affected going to these camps, I mean, that is definitely not good enough on one hand. And on the second hand, why do we need to flag off distribution of relief items to start with?
Okay, so sometimes I was going to look at this story from two perspectives previously. Now you've added another two to it. Okay, so let me first respond to the last of your questions. One, why do we need to flag off? We need to show that we are working. We need to show that we are sympathetic to the plight of the people, whether we mean it or we don't mean it. It is for the glam. It is for the gram, like we used to say, right? So you can tell from that flag off in quotes why we're now looking at it from the perspectives that I've looked at it. Every time anything happens to us in Nigeria, for good or for bad, we come out, people, if it's for good, people who had no stake, who had no idea how it came to happen, want to claim the glory. And when it is for bad, everybody throws up their arms like we are helpless. You see, it's not my fault. And that is what is so visible in this. Government says, I cannot control people who are coming to the IDP camps. Remember, the story of IDP camps in Nigeria became a big deal about 12, 14 years ago when this Boko Haram thing started in the same Borno, Yobe axis. And it has now crept into almost every state in Nigeria. It is an aberration in the first instance that in your own country, you are classified as an IDP, and then you are placed in a camp for more than a period of 3 months, 6 months, worst case scenario. And that is what we're seeing. The second part of your question was, why are people who are not direct victims? But wait, how are they not direct victims in all of this that we have said, direct or indirectly? There's a common denominator. Everybody is hungry. So if I hear there's free food anywhere else, I will go there. That's on the selfish part of the people. Then all of us profess one faith or the other, where we're supposed to be our neighbor's keeper. We should want for ourselves, we want for our neighbor.
Right.
So the individuals who have gone there when they were not affected, how do they answer to their God on that judgment day that they deprive people who need this because of their own, what my people call ojukokoro? That's their own greed and avarice. Yeah, so that's, we can leave arguing in the air. But for me, the most poignant of all of this is this, that it is so glaring how much undocumented we are as a people. So we can imagine, let's say, for example, let's take a random country in the world outside of Africa and say that this happened there. It's been like 8 days since this thing happened, right? It happened on, I think, Tuesday or Monday last week. So it will be between 8 and 10 days. So in that time, let's a random country outside of Africa, any country at all, would have imagined that by now there will be a list of people who are displaced, people who are missing, people who have been found dead, the number in hospitals, the number of bags of water that is needed, the number of cylinders of oxygen that is needed, the number, and with a plan of where all those things are going to be sourced and got and brought to Maiduguri. Pray today in Nigeria, which one of any of these things I've mentioned have we heard from NEMA, the government itself, of the state, the local government, the federal government, has been done? To the best of my knowledge, none. People will cross from, Borno is a border state. So people will cross from non-Nigerian communities into Borno and go to these camps as well. So you see the need for us to have data, the need for us to document ourselves, so that when things like this happen, for what, better by commission or omission, deliberate or not deliberate, we can put numbers to everything. It helps us to be able to solve the problems quickly. So now that we are where we are, what is the plan? Because we can't control people. So what will we do? We will stop feeding them. Because we don't know the number. How many bags of rice do we need to bring? If it's cash we want to give them, how much money are we giving them? We don't know. It gives room for the corruption Devoe just talked about to happen. Because the man is saying, they gave me 100, I finished distributing the 100. Because there are 20,000 people out there. And meanwhile, he's only distributed 50. Do you get? So, and so on and so that the bigger picture of these things that we need to start looking at. Now, here I hear each victim received a bag of rice and carton of pasta and 10,000 naira cash. Can these people who gave this account for these things? So there are more questions than answers in this story. Again, my condolences to the people of Borno, the governor, everybody involved, especially to Nigerians who are affected by this disaster.
Right, thank you for that, Lakunle. We need to take a quick breather right here. When we come back in, we'll continue on the stories and take your thoughts as well. Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1. We'll be back in a moment. Luckily, someone on WhatsApp said, That what's Okorie talking about? Why do you think normal regular people are sneaking into IDP camps? They are freaking hungry, period.
I said it now. I said it now. That's why I broke into like three different things. I know that they are hungry. People are hungry out there. As I said, your religion, your faith tells you love your neighbor as thyself. Want for yourself what you want for your neighbor. Don't take what is not your own. They don't qualify. Why did they go there?
Desperation, because they are hungry.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. People are hungry out there. It's a common denominator, whether they are affected or not.
Mm. Welcome back to Freshly Pressed on a beautiful Wednesday morning, hump of the week Wednesday morning. This is Smooth 98.1. We love music and we love life. We also love to talk about what's going on in the news. Freshly Pressed every Monday through Friday at 7:30 on the Smooth Breakfast. Ayokunmi here. Devoe and Lakunle are still with me on the matter this morning, taking a look at the stories and, of course, breaking it all down and giving us perspective and understanding as well. Come through and share your own thoughts and perspectives on the stories. WhatsApp is right there for you. 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. YouTube, we're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can also drop your comments there and I'll take them as we go along. Let me take a message or two before I come back to you, Devoe. This is a message from, this is Orov, if I'm correct. Says, what Ojukokoro are you talking about? Why do you think normal, regular people are sneaking into the IDP camps? They are hungry, period. Right, Orov, thank you for sharing your perspective. Let me see, who's talking to us again? Adeboyega Adidiji says, President Bola Tinubu should come down from his high horse and seek advice from the masters. People like President Olusegun Obasanjo that was able to see to the cancellation of our debt. There's no shame in asking for help. If President Tinubu really wants to make impact, he should take this step real quick in order to avert the looming danger before us. The disputes between Dangote and NNPCL will continue because both parties are not telling Nigerians the truth. All right, thank you for that. Michael says...
Can I quickly say something to that one, please?
Yes, please.
Yes, there's a National Federal Executive Council or Council of States meeting where all past presidents alive have regular meetings with the president. And I'm sure that past presidents and heads of states who are alive, who attend, will offer their opinions, which is left for Mr. President, the sitting president, to take or not to take.
All right. Michael says, we document flag-offs and donations. There's plenty of data for flag-offs. All right. Thank you for that, Michael. Devoe, let's get back into the stories. And we'll take this one that has to do with education. Very interesting one here from The Guardian. Now, it says the federal government has underscored the need for school principals to cultivate entrepreneurial mindsets in their students. Now, this is as the government disclosed plans to unbundle the 115 federal unity colleges in the country into basic and secondary schools. Now, this was disclosed by the Minister of State for Education, Dr. Yusuf, yesterday during the opening of the annual general meeting of principals and FUC's news in Abuja.
Well, the Minister of Education, thank God he reversed himself on the 18 cap for entry level to GCE and WAEC. However, at a association forum where principals of unity schools were present, he did announce that they would be unbundling the unity schools. There are about 119 of them nationwide. He said it's an old policy where you would have basic and secondary schools. But the point is, in this story, he doesn't actually explain how the unbundling will take place. And my point is this, he's saying that once unbundled, they'll have better funding, better training, better infrastructure. The only way the federal government can achieve that is if they liberalize or cede ownership of these schools. And by saying this, I'm not saying cede full ownership. During the Obi Ezekwesili administration, she did come up with this robust plan, which many stakeholders and even investors came on board, but it was later put under the carpet. The truth is this: education is an area that the federal government actually should not be operating. We expect them to be regulating. If at all they should operate, then they should limit it to where their budgets can carry. As you can see, at the primary school level, which is the basic education level, the federal government with over 5,000 schools nationwide cannot even cope. Okay? Most times we don't get to talk about the decrepit. When I say decrepit, most people who listen to Smooth FM do not have their children in public schools. But some of us attended public schools, even though our own children don't attend public schools anymore. But why do we allow this? That some level of the middle class and upwards would get proper education by their own private school training, whereas those who go to public schools, who once used to be the pride of the nation, get the worst form of education. Now, the federal government, just like in any other sector, needs to liberalize. Liberalize means maybe just like they did in the power sector, they can maintain 40% ownership of these schools and allow private sector operators to come in with about 60% of the capital required. While this is done, you can still remain through the Ministry of Education as a regulator and regulate some of these schools so that they still meet up to the objectives that we've always had. There's no point the federal government coming to give us audio promises that they want to unbundle and still maintain ownership 100% when you have a budget that cannot even feed a proper primary school students. Enough of this nonsense. I think we've come too far to continue telling ourselves sound bites that just sound nice, but at the end of the day, leave our children. Remember, we already have 20 million kids out of school. That shows you that, one, there are not enough schools. There are schools that have up to 300 children. That's at the basic level, 300 children in a class with only one teacher. You have universities that have over between 2,000 to 3,000 students in a class. And if you doubt me, go to the law school here in VI and ask the students there what they go through. So I think the federal government, because this is part of the reason why people japa, not just because it's hard for them in the country, but the quality and the standards in this country are below even discussion. Okay? When I used to work in a primary school and I had to use Yoruba to teach my students maths. Instead of 1 + 1 is 2, it was ikan ati ikan, ewasi meji. That's how they understood. Yes, I'm telling the reality of the Nigerian situation. You need to look at the Amajiri and how they just literally squander the streets up north. And someone does not understand why we have a lot of insecurity or why they're cannon fodder anytime politicians get evil in their ways. We need to get serious about our education. I'm calling for a state of emergency where education is required. And if it needs changing the minister, maybe they need to put in someone who has the virility, the agility to execute some of these reforms. Enough of this. We can't develop as a nation with a resource base that is half baked, if 1/4 baked at all. Thank you.
Right. All right. Thank you, Devoe. Barrister Dangote says, my sympathy goes to the people of Borno State. However, the disaster is a failure of governance. Thank you for your message. Kuro John says, on the IDP camps, there's no accountability and it continues down the line. So corruption won't stop and the non-IDP classified people will continue to throng the camps. It pays the people in charge. They will simply request for more. Toyosi says, the report about people that are falsely claiming to have been affected by the flood in Maiduguri has brought to the fore again that abject poverty can make even the most pious to become sinners. May God bring back happy days to Nigeria. Amen. And may joy return to our streets and to our homes. Amen to that. All right, Lakunle, let's jump into this one. And I think to a degree you can relate. At least this probably would help to alleviate your quote unquote malaria from the field you had to buy over the weekend. Coming out of the Vanguard, now the federal government has commenced training youth in compressed natural gas CNG conversion as part of the efforts to empower Nigerian youth and to reduce the country's reliance on imported fuels. I'll let you take it from here, Lakunle.
Okay, on a lighter note, right? Immediately I saw this story. The first thing I did in my mind, I said, here we go again. Empowerment, Nigerian youth. That was my first reaction. That it is always the remnant of opportunities that gets to Nigerian youth. On YouTube, in 6 minutes, anybody who can read ABC would learn how to convert a petrol or diesel engine to CNG with pictures, with drawings, with suggested locations where to put the whatever. So this is what.
But that's theory now, Lakunle. They need
I'm
to,
saying, with
put it in
pictures, with
practice.
videos. I mean, what is the best thing to teach people with? Visuals, drawings, simple English of communication, all of this in 6 minutes that I've watched this morning. While I am not saying everybody will be able to learn it that way, but I'm saying that this thing is not as difficult or as profitable as we are being made to understand with this thing, saying they are creating a whole program, a 2-day event, harnessing youth potentials and career prospects. Pray, what career is in converting PMS engine to CNG? It's on the average typically a one-off. So there are 1 million, there are 10 million cars in Nigeria. All the 10 million wants to convert. You only do it once, 10 million times, and that is it. After that, what happens to them that they have spent the money to train? So sometimes from the outside, it appears that you criticize, it is smooth to say it in your mouth. But when you reason out some of these things that we hear from the top, from government, it makes you want to think that maybe you are simplifying things too much. I do not think that this is worthy of this advertisement. I mean, there are what's it called? A lot of mechanic workshops in Nigeria today where you can go to already mechanics that you can send these people to go and train. So when you say that it is a career prospect, I'm trying to imagine what is prospective about something you do once and that is it. That somebody, except that, of course, because it is reversible, it's a reversible process. You can go CNG to PMS and PMS back to CNG as many times as you want, as is comfortable for you. But how is that a career prospect? How many CNG conversions will I do in a day in the next 5 years that can sustain me as a Nigerian youth? So those are the questions that came to my mind, and I wish that Honorable Titilope Badamosi, the Special Assistant to the President on Youth Initiatives, had provided this kind of reasoning and answer to these my questions at this event.
All right, thank you, Lakunle. Let's take some messages as we get set to round up on the conversation. Idimapuza says the current fuel scarcity is just deployed to increase the pump price of fuel. Cabals don't want to stop importation. That's why our refineries won't work. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Who's talking to us here? Michael Onyeweke says, Lakunle, he doesn't agree with your assertion, Lakunle, and he says that your take on the PMS engine conversion is quote unquote lame in his own words. And he's wondering why you're suggesting that learning such on YouTube or even trivializing the learning technique. Do you want to should I say clear that one up? Luckily.
Sorry?
Do you want to clear that one up?
Okay, so like I said, I didn't say that is the ultimate to do. I've just brought it up as a reasoning to say that, are we creating a career? How are we creating a career out of something that is a one-off? Maybe I'm the one that is not, I'm the one that is not seeing it the way others are seeing it. Maybe I admit I'm human as well, but I'm trying to imagine what is the career in a one-off this thing that I would only once. Okay, so I do 10 million cars. After that, what happens? I go to learn another trade.
Well, it's your perspective, luckily, and it's open to, should I say, a debate or a conversation, as it were.
Anyway, the truth is, Lakunle is just an installation framework. So they want to use it to drive some seasonal level of employment for youths. I mean, there's nothing bad in it. Like those who fix ACs or those who are plumbers, it's a vocational gift that they're giving our youth. So literally, by the time CNG grows, Hopefully, if they're able to bring down the price, you will have many people who will be able to install it in their cars, just like multi-choice or DSTV installation at your home. A few youths, they'll do it at a price, make a margin on top of it, and have a form of living. That's simply what the federal government is trying to achieve here.
Okay,
Right,
I agree
right.
with you.
Thank you for that, Devoe. Patrick says the government has lost control of everything and is confused. And Jane says, I taught in Babaloma. We had to teach in Baruba and Yoruba, and these kids will write WAEC. We need to prioritize education. All right. On that note, we need to call it a morning on Freshly Pressed. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And of course, Lakunle and Devoe for joining me this morning. Always great having you on.
Thank you for having me. See you next week.
All right. Devoe, have a great morning. All right, then. Thank you all for joining us on Freshly Pressed. Keep it tuned to Smooth 98.1. The locker room will come up at 8:15. It's all about sports at that time.